Basilio from Democratic Services in support on my left. This meeting is being held in Abbey House, Abingdon, and voting members of this committee are here in person as required, and we have officers and cabinet members both in the room and joining remotely this evening, and we have lots of people in and out this evening. This meeting is being recorded and shared live on YouTube for the public and members to view. If those of you who are online could keep your microphones muted, please, while not speaking, that would be really helpful, but please do raise your hand if you'd like to speak during an item. For those of you who are in the room, the evacuation procedure in the event of an emergency is to evacuate through the nearest exit, which is around the corridor to our right. Please assemble in the car park. If anyone needs a break, there's water in the foyer and a toilet, and we will take a break probably after the second substantial item. Please keep mobile phones silent or off, and committee members, unless your phones are where you have your meeting papers, please don't use them during the meeting. At the end of the meeting, we will confirm that the live stream has ended, and please remember to sign out. So this is a meeting in public and not a public meeting, but I don't think we have any members of the public registered to speak. Okay. So item 1 of our agenda then, Chair's announcements. I would really just like to welcome Councillors Kate Gregory, Ian Snowden and David Turner. Ian Snowden is here this evening to this committee, and thank you for joining us. I'd also like to thank Councillor Stefan Garish. I've never stumbled over that before. For all his work as co-chair over the last 2 years. And I'm pleased to welcome Councillor Joe Robb as our new co-chair, although unfortunately Councillor Robb has had to send apologies this evening. So we have 3 main items of business on the agenda this evening, which we will take in the order that they're listed on our agenda. So we have Didcot Garden Town Programme Update and Review. We've got a review of progress on the Air Quality Action Plan, the Joint Council's Action Plan, and we've got a short item on recommendations from the Joint Scrutiny Task and Finish Group. And I will introduce officers and cabinet members for each of those items. Apologies for absence. We have, oh, sorry.
That's okay. Apologies from Joe Robb, as you said, Councillor Joe Robb, but we've got Councillor Sam Casey-Rarai, who's substituting today. And we've also had apologies from Stefan Kaprashak.
Thank you very much. So if we move now to minutes of the last meeting, this was a long time ago. This is 24th of February 2025. And if you remember the meeting, it was in the other room around the corner. And we were discussing the terms of reference for the council leaders meeting. So could those of you who were present at that meeting confirm that it's a fair record of that meeting? Thank you, Councillor Stevens.
Yep.
Councillor Latson.
You were there. Just be in the room around the corner. That's I didn't even the door. Yeah. Oh, that might be why I don't
Very wise.
Okay, perfect. Thank you ever so much. Yes, that was a good set of numbers. Thank you. I'll sign those at the end. Thank you. Okay. Declarations of interest. Do any of our committee members have any declarations of pecuniary or otherwise interests in relation to any items this evening?
No, but recommended that I'm also a county councillor. So,
okay.
Yeah,
Lovely, thank you.
I am as well.
Yeah.
No, that's okay. I think it's probably relevant in relation to the Didcot Garden Town item, but thank you very much.
The APRMA has got these. I don't think I would really declare that. You can have it declared.
So you're declaring it as another interest, and then you can carry on participating and vote and everything, but it's out there.
Yes,
Okay.
it's just it's my area. And technically, I'm sure
I don't think we have any interest that would prevent anybody from voting or being involved in the items this evening. So thank you.
I'm happy with that.
All right, thank you. I have no urgent business to discuss. Andy, did you know of any urgent business? Public participation. We don't have any public, any members of the public registered to speak with us this evening. Which moves us then to Scrutiny Work Programme, item number 7 on our agenda. So this evening we have the 3 items that are listed for this meeting. We also have a standing item related to integrated care board partnerships, and those are because I think members and officers feel it's particularly important that we keep that relationship and those discussions open, those conversations open. We also have another item which Councillor Rob and I have been discussing with officers again recently, and we are hoping to bring that forward as soon as we can, related to Thames Water and Environment Agency. So I particularly invite committee members and others of interest or with ward interest, if you do have questions that you would like to put to Thames Water and the Environment Agency regarding issues in our 2 districts, please do let Councillor Rob and I know, and we will make sure that those questions are asked. At the moment, we haven't scoped out how big the topics could be, so we're very happy to welcome any contributions at all. Traditionally, this committee has a historic focus on much of our work is around joint contracts, council contracts. Councillor Rob and I are meeting with Nick to discuss that item and how we might consider those contracts as part of this committee going forward, particularly in the light of local government reform, what can and can't be discussed. So we will bring more information to you when we can. So if there are any other items that council committee members, Councillor Snowden.
Yeah. No, I don't know if this is obviously it's got to be joint, but just things I think the public would be interested in more than anything else is two things that fill in my inbox at the moment. One is enforcement, the fact that people think that builders get away with all kinds of stuff. We had Taylor Wimpey recently, I know it's an investigation now, but Taylor Wimpey had to go back and complain again because they cut down a protected hedge road and claimed it was a mistake to build a road now. But I think there's so many other of my residents contacted like builders getting away with stuff. Just had a massive fence put down and enforcement are going to look into it. But it's such a long thing. I think something to discuss and just see, have we got enough staff in that? Are we overworking them? We're prioritising things correctly. And the other one that's filled my inbox massively, and I don't know, I know the officers have worked incredibly hard to bring it back down, but it'd be interesting to see what caused it. If we can stop happening in the future, we had that massive backlog of housing application. So people were, I think it was 20 weeks at the highest, at the worst point, where somebody had to register. They had to wait 20 weeks before their case was even looked at. And I was fighting for a few residents, and I found it strange that they chose to do it chronologically. So if someone like myself applied, I had no grounds for really anything. The person after me might have a single mother with 6 children living in a 3-bedroom house and is pregnant, just about to give birth. She would be sick. She'd have to wait 20 weeks and 10 minutes to be after me at that point. And the officers worked incredibly hard on this because I've been speaking to them. But I just, again, was that staff? Is there some way we can get, help them so that doesn't happen again? And they're getting it down, like I say, working incredibly hard. But I just want to know what happened, because a lot of them got very frustrated just getting the email back saying it's going to be at least 16 weeks or something like that,
So when you talk about housing applications, you're not talking about planning, you're talking about people applying for housing.
Yeah, having needs and all that sort of stuff.
Okay. I think Candida, please could you remind, we get an annual report from the enforcement team, don't we?
So planning enforcement are due to come to the separate scrutinies in November with an update on the triage system. So, and that's when they give you figures on the backlog and how they've been working on that and things like that. So, okay, that might be of interest.
So I think we'll leave that one then with the separate committees, and Councillor Casey Rowe and I will be on that one. That one would have come slightly earlier, but because of all the work that has gone on with the IT systems, we've moved it slightly later in the year. But I think let's talk a bit more about your concerns around housing applications, and perhaps we can talk to officers and cabinet members and see whether that's the right time.
I'm not sure if it will even add value. So I say if you speak to officers, I'm just throwing ideas out there, they might be open to.
No, I think it's certainly worth looking at all ideas, and so I think we can minute that you've raised that. Let's follow that up further.
Thank you. In terms of issues with the planning process, I've seen issues of that coming along too in my ward, where I'm a little bit annoyed about how long things are taking. conditions not being not being kind of followed through correctly. Or,
So that's related to enforcement.
well, yes, I suppose it is. Yeah.
So what we can always do is, whilst that's already established that we're having that in November, but both councils, we can fine tune it. An officer will fine tune it to deal with specific areas of concern which the two members have raised. So that's not an issue.
Okay.
Well,
in that case, let's follow this up after the meeting by email, and then we can ask officers to look perhaps in more detail at particular elements.
Mine's more on update, because we did have discussions between the Scrutiny and Vale and SODC Scrutiny on housing policy, and I know that we put all that in abeyance for the local plan and the inspectorate. But do we have any idea about how that might, because it's not even on the agenda items. So I don't know if we've decided which committee it's going to.
It's still on the Vale of White Horse work programme.
And I'm going back to the separate.
For housing policy,
Yeah.
yes, I think so. And but I think we can perhaps come back to that this evening under item 10, because we're talking that about bringing cabinet members in to look at particular portfolios.
Okay.
So
Yes.
perhaps we can think about it in
I don't
terms of
want
us
that
moving
item
forward.
to be lost, because it was discussed right across the board, wasn't it, rather than just in separate districts.
Thank you. Any more comments on the work programme, or shall we move on? I think it would be. And if you do have any ideas, or particularly issues that residents are coming to you with you regularly, I think that's absolutely part of our remit, and what we should be looking at, and something we've been doing more recently in Vale. Okay, let us move to item 8 on our agenda this evening, which is the Didcot Garden Town programme update and review. So I would like to welcome Councillor Tony Morgan, who's new cabinet member for, apologies, I haven't got your cabinet role.
economic development.
Economic development. And we also have Councillor Helen Piggles, who hopefully is joining us online. Hello, yes, hi. And then
Yes,
we
I'm
also,
here.
hello. And then in terms of officer support, we have Jane Bolton. Thank you very much for joining us. Charlotte Cottingham online, and Emma East in the room as well. You're very welcome, all of you. Thank you ever so much for joining us this evening. Councillor Morgan, can I ask you to introduce this item, please?
Certainly, thank you, Chair. Pleased to attend this as the first meeting I'm attending as a cabinet member, so thank you for making this my first one. And I'm going to present the Didcot Garden Town update. As you said, I've got the officers who've supported the work here with us, Jane Bolton, Charlotte Cottingham and Emma East. Didcot was awarded Garden Town status in 2015, and the Garden Town area is split across the Vale of the White Horse and SODC boundaries, hence it's quite suitable for coming to a joint scrutiny meeting. And there was an original 2017 delivery plan for the central master plan area and outer area of influence. Originally 60 projects in the portfolio, but that was reduced in 2022 to 27. Over the last 3 years, the Garden Town team has overseen the completion of 12 of those projects, and the remaining 15 are on track or embedded as business as usual activities. The report reviews this program. The report reviews its progress and proposes a new program that consolidates Garden Town principles by creating new projects such as the Healthy Didcot and Healthy Heart of Science Vale. At cabinet meetings in July, they'll be asked to note updates and approve the following. So 4 bullet points here, which is what we're bringing to you today. A revised Didcot Garden Town Advisory Board terms of reference, which was endorsed by the Advisory Board in March 25, and those are appendices 1 and 2. A draft Healthy Didcot Community Insight Profile and Action Plan, which are appendices 3 and 4, and to give a delegated authority to the head of communities to make amendments to the Healthy Didcot Action Plan and changes to the 2022 Garden Town Programme of Projects, Appendix 5, which includes an update on live projects. Just before I go on, just to stress some of the points in the original report, Didcot is younger than the rest of SODC. It's got more people employed, it's got more families, it's got more people renting, and it's still a growing community. It's still a predominantly white community, but with a 12% ethnic mix, which is more than the remainder of SODC. And Lady Grove is healthier, but South and West are less healthy than average. So it does vary across the town. Lady Grove is a very healthy part of the council, but South and West have more problems. And the Didcot has fewer students in higher education. So these are some of the issues that we're trying to move forward on. The advisory board terms of reference was endorsed by the advisory board on 17th March 25, and we will be seeking cabinet approval for the endorsed terms of reference. The key changes here are we're moving from 3 sounding boards, which were appropriate whilst the programme was being developed, to 2 community-based meetings a year, which is more relevant to the actual end date of delivery. Actually, we're in delivery mode now, and that's a more relevant way of communicating. So with those there'll be targeted engagement with local groups, with residents, with landowners, with local authorities on a project by project basis. There's also include Age UK, My Vision, the Orchard Centre, Taylor Wimpey. There's a Didcot Garden Town newsletter going out quarterly. Subscribers including sounding board members, parish clerks, the Didcot Garden Town Action Board members and residents who signed up. Attendance at public events such as the recent Oxfordshire Play Day held in Edmonds Park in Didcot, I think 3 weeks ago. Communications team have highlighted events and opportunities for feedback on social media. The Healthy Didcot survey had 1,655 responses, and there has a community engagement session event has been organised on the 18th of September in Didcot in the Northern District Community Centre on Great Western Park. So we are replacing the 3 sounding boards with twice yearly community update meetings. Other minor changes include new board membership for Didcot First and an administrative change where Oxlep is now Enterprise Oxford. The Didcot Community Insight Profile, which is Appendix 3, is a completed piece of data collection on behalf of the Garden Town. And we're asking both cabinets to note the paper. It's got 3 sections, a collation of local and national data comparisons against Didcot, thorough consultation with residents, as we said, over 1,600 people participating, and focused engagement with key stakeholders across the town, including many frontline service providers, many of whom here will be very, very familiar with. The Healthy Didcot Action Plan is based on the needs identified in the Community Insight Profile. It's a live document led by a community-based multi-agency steering group. It includes the Garden Town team. And we will be seeking cabinet approval for the draft action plan and for delegated authority for the head of communities to amend the action plan as it evolves. It's a living document. This is because since both cabinets approved a streamlined programme in June 22, based on the original 2017 programme, the team has overseen the completion of projects and progressed others to detailed design or implementation. Before each quarterly advisory board meeting, we share with the board members and publish on the website a tracker that updates on project progress, which you'll see in the papers for this meeting. And it's the current proposed programme table is in Appendix 5. And finally, Appendix 6, this is for information and to note that members may wish to comment, and it fills out some details on the jobs, homes, open spaces and localism originally envisaged in the report back in 2015. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Morgan, very much. Jane, would you like to add anything else? Or
I think Tony's covered this particular report very, very, very well. Thank you very much, Tony. It's obviously a very big programme, been gone a long time. I've only been involved myself for 3 years. Would like to highlight and thank Emma for the work that she's done on the Healthy Didcot profile. Just a little bit of background to that. The the methodology that we've used for the Healthy Didcot profile is based on something led by Oxfordshire County Council's public health team, which we've used as a principle in South Abingdon and in Berensfield, which have already been formally kind of adopted, implemented. We knew that there was some very specific health issues going on in Didcot, which were highlighted to us from Councillor Ruan, particularly around childhood obesity. So that was what started us on the journey, really. And then once we started digging a little bit in the health aspect, we were very lucky that the steering group members that came forward to help us drive that message, particularly some local GPs being involved was really, really great to get that much passion to bring it forward. And we still continue to work with the public health team to embed this as a proper community insight profile that will get weight from the endorsement from county, and also does lead to further funding. And Emma actually told me as we came into the meeting that she knows that some groups within Didcot have already used the evidence base to put in funding bids to be able to secure funding. So the Healthy Didcot work is something that's kind of come alongside, probably wasn't really an intention of the scheme when it was formally put forward, but certainly a great piece of work. I'm really pleased to see it come forward.
Thank you, Jane. That's really helpful to understand. Committee members, would anybody like to start? Start.
I've got a list. Okay, so I'll do a little bit first.
Okay, Councillor Snowden.
Just point of clarification first. So you talked about where the meeting was going to be. You said the Northern District. It's Northern, Southern, and then the district. Which one is it?
It's the Northern Community Centre on
Northern,
Bramley.
not the district one.
Sorry, it is a district.
Sorry, district.
District.
Okay,
Yes.
so that's fine. So that was a little clarification.
Apologies for the confusion.
So one of my issues that I have as a Didcot resident and as a business owner and that, I get the feeling these sounding boards are the same people who put their names up for everything and look online and say, oh, there's an opportunity to do this. How much engagement do we get to go out there? Because I've received information as a councillor, but I've never been asked. I've got two businesses registered at Didcot. I've never been asked.
Sorry, can I stop?
Sorry.
That? Whilst we're here as a scrutiny
Okay.
member, members have to do that on the basis of their community role and disregard their own personal interests, including business interests.
Yes, I'm
and so
just
on.
as an example. I haven't. I've spoken to many other. I wonder whether I didn't get communication because they knew I was a councillor. But I've spoken to many other business owners. And I've said, have you been asked about the being part of it?
So, but just to remind you,
No,
obviously,
it's my personal. No.
Public thing, it needs to be very clear that you're separating yourself from your personal and business interests, and that you're here speaking purely as a councillor.
I was just giving an analogy, but thank you very much. Yeah, so
Thank you. Thank you,
I've spoken to many business owners in Didcot that I represent, and none of them knew anything about that they could have a chance of that. And I just wonder how much, during the COVID, for example, when we had the COVID grant for businesses, I went around contacting them, telling them they could apply for it, which we must have a list of names. Just could we not send it out to try and see if we get some new ones? Same with the residents. I mean, you tend to find people who are very proactive and look for these things. Same people like consultations. Like you tend to find a lot of people do the same. People do that. Are we going to do any out engagement so we get different voices for change?
I'd like to invite Emma just to comment on the current contacts, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. Yes, in answer to your question, yes, we do speak to business. So obviously we've got Didcot First on the board, so there's a big group of businesses that are involved there. We also have contact with developers as well as other businesses in the town. We've discussed when we've. It depends. Basically, it depends on the project that we're working on as to who we are now targeting to engage with.
That's kind of my point. I just jumping just so you can answer it.
Yeah.
Didcot First, brilliant. People who want to join, the businesses who join up there, it's a good little club. They does a very good job of that. But that's a tiny percentage of the businesses that are registered in Didcot. And as I said, during the COVID grants, Didcot First let all their members know about it. But it was the small businesses and the Indian restaurant owners and that they didn't know how to go online and find out about these things. So I just wondered if we were doing any engagement.
With business grants are a little bit different, because
the
they're obviously economic development that we're dealing with those during COVID. So from the Garden Town community's point of view, there was some discussion with local businesses along the Broadway when we were looking at the Broadway projects And we also helped answer some of the questions as part of the Didcot Central Corridor that County were looking at as well at the time. So from that perspective, we do speak with businesses. They're very welcome to join the newsletter and find out what's happening. They can also look on social media where the comms are putting out social media press releases, letting people know about the surveys and things that are happening.
And I get that.
So,
I get that. That sort of thing. But
yes.
let's just find on this one. I don't take it all just on businesses. But obviously, a big part of Didcot area is Orchard Centre.
Yes.
So British Land.
Yeah, we speak with them
So
regularly.
you then as part of the Garden Town.
Yes, we do. We do have conversations with them. We are at the moment trying to get a bike repair stand outside of Cineworld to install that. We've already got one at the District Community Centre, and we have one outside Didcot Way. We're just waiting to get that installed. I think it's virtually there now. We're nearly there to put that in. We're also liaising with them as part of the wayfinding project, and the landowners with that as well. We'll be contacting them very shortly to look at getting licenses for access to the land.
Thank you.
Thank you. If I could just kind of summarise, it sounds like there's an opportunity with this changing engagement to invite some new voices, perhaps. I think perhaps that's what Councillor Snowden's getting at. So,
and I think if I might add, if there are people Councillor Snowden thinks ought to be invited on the 18th of September, please forward the names and we'll do that.
thank you. Councillor Owain, would you like to jump in?
Yeah, one of the reasons why I'm sitting online is because I have a bit more of the history than Councillor Morgan does. One of the changes we're making to the governance, if you remember when Tony went through it, was we did used to have a business sounding board, and we felt that wasn't really contacting businesses locally. It was a small group which did some work but wasn't really functioning as a way of contacting out to businesses. We also suffer from the fact that there isn't a business organisation that does represent small businesses in the way that there are in many towns across Thames Valley. We do have Oxlep, who have always been on the board, as well as our business contacts. So we have tried to contact businesses, but partly it's a recognition that we didn't manage to contact smaller businesses, that we've done this change towards the community engagement rather than having a business sounding board, which wasn't really doing the job.
Thank you, Councillor Owain. That's very helpful. Committee members. Councillor Batstone.
Yes, a quick question on the council report. It's paragraph 6 says that we're proposing to merge terms of reference for the sounding boards and the advisory board. And I don't see why we need to continue with the terms of reference with the sounding boards at all, since we've essentially got rid of.
Should we not take on?
And they are listed in Appendix 2.
Okay. Charlotte, you put that together. Can we just comment on that?
Yes, certainly. I think this is trying to get over the fact that we're not removing the people that were being contacted through the sounding boards and their role in the whole process. It's not being taken out. It's being merged into one core document. So perhaps it's poor wording to say we're merging the terms of reference, but we did previously have terms of reference for the sounding boards and a terms of reference for the advisory board, the main advisory board. This is now the aspects that relate to the people involved in the sounding boards is now merged into this one advisory board terms of reference.
Yes, I think that's fine. Thanks. Come back on it.
Abby?
Yes, hand. Yes,
Okay.
recently.
Councillor Stevens.
So I've got a couple of questions. So one is in the work programme, you've got HIF1 as the #1 project. And I just wondered in what capacity, because HIF1 presumably is a county-led project. So is Didcot Garden Town team working with the county, and in what capacity? And then I'll tell you my concern about it.
Yeah, please.
So when the advisory board was established,
Yeah.
it's established with the county council, one of the key partners, district council, Homes England, other public bodies make up the advisory board.
Yeah.
The advisory board doesn't have any statutory function. It is purely, as it says on the tin, an advisory board.
Okay.
Each public body has their own responsibility for their projects. So those projects were put forward as a collective for what would be needed to do across the garden town. But each public body takes those actions delivery projects through their own council statutory governance routes. So although it's a garden town project that we report on, it's the responsibility of the county council to deliver that project.
So were you advising on the kind of the quality of the build and?
No, not at all. No, that's absolutely council transport expertise.
So I guess my concern is that in the advisory board, you say that you have one member from the 5 parish councils around the edge, and given Hiff Road is kind of cutting right through those parish councils, I don't think that's necessarily a fair democratic outcome for those parish councils, and perhaps they should each be given a seat, particularly Appleford, which is going to be ostracised by that road for 5 years for the length of time that's going to be built. And I think there's a duty of care in a way, that's the wrong word, obviously, but there's an obligation to kind of wrap your arms a bit more around some of those villages. They might not want to be wrapped around it, but certainly be, make sure they get the benefits of the Garden Town advisory gravitas.
We could take that away just to look at that. I mean, I think the point you're making is, are we certain that the smaller villages do have enough input? So if we could take that away and just look at that again, if that's okay.
Okay, yes.
Pacific.
Yeah, inevitably, I'll give me orange, sorry. Also in the work programme, under number 11, and I apologise to anyone who was on the Oxford, the All Oxford thingy board that we had, because I always rabbited on about the Milton pedestrian and cycle bridge, which was required for the developments that were built there and then punted into the long grass every year ever since, and I've been complaining, hassling about that. Number 11 on this is the Science Vale Active Travel Network. Plan, develop and construct active travel routes across the Science Vale, connecting Harwell Campus, Milton Park and Coolham Science Centre and urban centres, including Didcot, with active travel routes. So I'd assume that includes cycle routes and walking. I can't really see any way of doing that without actually providing that cycle bridge over Milton Heights, over the Milton interchange. So, but down here you've just got closed against it, not complete, and there's no notes as they are on everything else. So, just my question is basically, I think we can see where I'm coming from here. Where's this bridge ever going to come from? Because it's been defunded repeatedly and they've been actively looking for funding. This looks like it could be an ideal source, but it's closed.
Can I ask Charlotte to come in and respond to that question, if that's okay?
Yeah, certainly. The Science Vale Active Travel project was closed on our programme because this was seen as being business as usual for Oxfordshire County Council. And a lot of the aspects about cycle routes and connectivity we've absorbed into other projects like green infrastructure and the work that will carry on with the LCWIP, the local cycling and walking infrastructure plan. I take your point about the Milton Heights Bridge, but that's not a project that we felt that was very much a county council led project that we perhaps could not have the influence on or obtain grant aid for.
I should violently beat my county councillor around the head as soon as
Perhaps it's an issue to take to your county
I'll take that away to the county council.
or the county council as a whole. Do we have any more questions related to the terms of reference and elements of this that aren't the healthy didcot bit? If we take that first, then we can move on to health. That's all.
One sort of typo one is that in terms of reference at H, you've got Oxford, and in terms of reference, you've got 16 Enterprise Oxfordshire. So they've changed one, but they haven't changed the other because Oxford doesn't exist anymore. So, sorry about
We'll
that.
update.
So yes, I think
We'll do a control F.
Control F, yeah.
yes, it's just a typo. Also the sounding boards. I mean, one of the reasons it was set up that way was because there were 5 parishes actively involved in the master plan and 17 surrounding villages. Given the now governance structure, I'm wondering, I mean, it could go one of 2 ways. The businesses and things could shout a bit louder, or you could have all 17 parishes in there all shouting for their bit and their village. And when it was all set up, I seem to remember all 17 wanting to have their shout. It may have calmed down a bit now, but that worries me how you're going to handle that. I wouldn't want to chair that meeting, but I think that could be quite difficult. But I think you might have to have very clear-cut agendas so that the people coming know what's going to be discussed. Otherwise, they're all going to just throw in their pennyworth.
Yes, and clearly just because somebody shouts loudly doesn't necessarily they're going to be listened to anymore. Everybody will be listened to, and appropriate weighting will be placed on all comments, and it will be assessed accordingly. And clearly, if you've got lots of parishes saying exactly the same thing, that has a lot of weight. But and lots of businesses saying the same thing, that will have a lot of weight. But each of the points will be listened to and assessed very carefully.
So I'm sorry, Mayor. So I'm still slightly confused though. Is it 5 or 17? Because in the terms of reference it says 5 parish councils and so I'm trying to find the right page. Bear with me.
Some parish councils have more than.
Shall I ask you to come in, being the expert in this field?
Yes, so currently in the first appendix, which is the terms of reference as they are now, it's very clear that we are just dealing with a representative who has been selected by the 5 parishes that have land within the Didcot master plan area, the central part. That obviously includes Didcot Town Council. The other parishes outside are in what's called the area of influence. They're very important as the necklace of villages with the green areas around Didcot. What we were taking forward in the proposed new terms of reference would be to continue with those 5 central parishes being represented on the advisory board, and they could speak for other parish councils. So the representative of those 5 parishes is supposed to go back to the parishes and talk with them and take on their points of view and spread information back to them. What I'm hoping is that with the new structure of community update meetings, we would in fact be able to widen the invitations. So we could have specific topics for each of the 2 meetings in the year. And we could in fact widen that invitation to encourage more parishes to turn up. I would like to add that at the last parish council meeting that we organised, I think it was back in September or October, the only parish council that turned up was Didcot Town Council, and none of the others came to our online meeting.
So I think it's important to invite particularly the parish councils where the land is within the land that you're trying to influence, because that's like a must, and the others I agree is just recommended.
But the community update meeting, which is the 18th of September, they will be invited to that.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. Thank you, everyone. Are there any other questions pertaining to? I'm just looking back at our recommendations. So the terms of reference or the work programme specifically.
I think it was the board membership. Again, it might be just confusing paragraph 7.
Which
But I think
page
we
was
need to-
Councillor Batstone?
Paragraph 7 in the terms of reference of the board, it says it will comprise representatives from local authority and local organisations. And each organisation will have one designated representative from each organisation. But the list below isn't of organisations, it's of members, and implies that some organisations have more than one voting member.
Struggling to find the paragraph.
Page 29 of your
Page
report.
29.
Paragraph 7 of appendix 2.
It sort of suggests there might be a list of organisations, but it's actually then a list of members.
The two parts where there are more than one person listed is SODC and Vale,
That's
where
right.
the leader and one other member will be a member. Everything else, I think, is just one.
Yes, you're right, but yes, it's just it's just when I read it, it looked a bit confusing because I expected a list of organisations rather than the particular people.
Oh, I see. Right. So you're suggesting perhaps it could be a clerk or.
Well, yes,
So
that's
you're-
what it implies. There will be a designated representative from each organisation.
Yes.
But then we sort of designated it.
Well,
each organisation could designate their own
yes,
representative.
we're not mandating who
Yeah.
each of those organisations could send. It may be appropriate for Didcot Town Council to send a particular post, and for
Yeah.
Milton Parish Council to send a different person.
Yes, I think it's just a confusion of this wording.
I think that's fine.
Yeah,
Thank you. I'd like to move us now to the healthy. Charlotte, yes, please.
Sorry, could I just say that I could change that into actually just listing the organisations, but I wonder whether in fact you want me to remove the idea that the leader of each of South Oxfordshire and Vale of Whitehorse, whether you want to remove from that the leader would be the person responsible in the same way that we have, we currently are chaired by the Oxfordshire County Council leader. And they can nominate. So although there are two people mentioned for our councils, there's only one person who's got a vote from each of our councils. I can reword it.
If I the only thing I'd say to that, Chair, as you've invited me to, the leader roles at the councils have specific additional lightness of foot because of the leaders. I can't remember the name of the document here, but they have additional powers given to them to attend these meetings constitutionally. So we would probably have to change around at our end if it was changed in this document to make them match. So I think this is specifically done because of there's an established leader role at this board or on a board of this type. So we probably want to leave the leader roles as they are. On the parish councillor element, I understand what Councillor Batsman's saying about it being unclear to him, but a parish clerk as a proper officer is there to enact decisions, not make decisions, with apart from a very fine number of things to do with employer roles, for example. So although I understand what's being said, I'm not sure there's a need to change it, although if there was a formatting change as Charlotte just said, to sort of set out in a different way, I'm sure there'd be no problem with that. But the leader role would need to stay leader at the moment. I'd be my recommendation.
Okay, I think probably avoiding line editing on the fly is probably a good thing for us to do, but perhaps we can recommend that, everyone involved in this document does consider that we're not accidentally ruling people out just by using the wrong words. Okay. Thank you ever so much. Let us move now to the healthy action plan element of this, which I find particularly fascinating. And so I haven't spoken yet. So I have obviously spoken lots, but I haven't asked a question. So I would like to start, if I may be so rude. I'm interested. This seems to me an incredibly important piece of work, which is fascinating and reveals a huge amount of detail and understanding of Didcot And so I'm interested, given that we're now 10 years into the project, why hasn't this been done before? And how is the insight that this brings going to change the project now? I think we've already mentioned that, for example, local groups are using it for grant funding, which I think is excellent. But it seems obvious to me, you've got a project that's talking about things like green infrastructure and active travel, and you're identifying very specific geographical parts of the Didcot that have particular challenges related to obesity, to heart disease, to diabetes. It seems to me that this kind of insight is vital to actually shaping what kind of infrastructure we give people to allow them to move around in more healthy ways. And so, yeah, I'd be interested to know more about why now, why not earlier, and how's it changed? Thank you.
It's difficult for me to answer why not earlier because I was appointed to the role in May this year, so I can't answer that. All I can say is it's a vitally important bit of information. It sets direction of travel for policies across Didcot in a huge number of different ways, whether that's things delivered via councils or delivered via all of the organisations that you'll see on, I think it's page 108, but you'll see a huge amount of local organisations that do fantastic work, and it drives the outputs from them. It drives where they can target funding. It provides the evidence that they can go to other bodies, not just within the council, but government and various other things to do that. People like the Didcot Powerhouse Fund and whatever, it actually enables them to sort of like, well, if we've got our independent funding, where should we look to target that sort of funding? I can't answer why it wasn't done before. I don't know if anybody else wants to take that up.
It was born out, so I understand it was born out of the census, 2021 census. So we have only just started this actual project in the past few years. So we've now got to the point where we're putting an action plan together that's taken quite time to, but David was also involved at the beginning.
Yes, please, Councillor Rowan.
As I said, I'm here for history purposes. The Garden Town, when it was originally set up, was using a template that's used around the country about garden towns, which comes from Homes England. And one of my frustrations when I first became part of it was that it spends all its time talking about things. And I always felt we ought to be talking about people. And Jane kindly said that I pushed for this change to happen. We have now, this is part of that process of moving away from talking about stuff that people can point at and actually worrying about what the town needs, and health particularly, I felt wasn't being captured by all the arguments about all the bits of ironmongery that were about to be put around the town.
Thank you. Yeah.
So let's add also that the outcomes from COVID and all of the recovery plans that were then put in place following COVID obviously raised health so much higher on everybody's agenda. And I think seeing the work that's come through county and the funding that's come through county, the community insight profiles, which were originally done for the top 10 most deprived areas in Oxfordshire, really highlighted what could be achieved by working jointly together with people to address some of these needs. There's been some amazing case studies across Oxfordshire and some of the most deprived areas. So we were lucky that actually a template had already been put together. And so that then made it easier for us to go away and do this work. And we've just, the success has been, second to none, really, the amount of people that have come forward, organisations to support the scheme. And we're at a very exciting stage now, just to agree with the action plan and then been able to do some work. And hopefully bring forward more funding to enable these things to happen jointly. It's not going to be a district function at all. We can't do this alone. It's a very much collective way forward.
Thank you.
I don't mind stepping in and just say, I mean, it's very interesting. It's alarming, but most of it I think we're quite well aware of. I knew I had two most private areas of Oxfordshire in my ward a few years ago. But if I showed this to a resident in Didcot, it'd be like, yeah, we know, the education side of things. People are saying in Didcot for years now, we should have a college of further education. That would tackle, we get more youngsters. The fact that a youngster wants to go to college, you've got to go to Whitney. And public transport is so bad, they're like, oh, no, I'm going to do something else. The GP surgery, a lot of this illness stuff, I know people who have got something and I need to go to see a GP and they keep ringing up, oh, I can't get in, I won't bother. Didcot residents, everyone here knows how desperate we are for GP surgery. So it's not rocket science. It's the same as public transport, cycling, all that sort of thing. The reason we won't cycle as much in Didcot is because we haven't got any infrastructure. Didcot's growing the population's growing 5 times faster than the average in England, and yet we've had no infrastructure. Didcot Garden Town is a joke in Didcot because it's delivered nothing for them. It's not made it greener, which is what people think. It's just created houses, and we've got lots of promises. I mean, this is laughable when you read the apparently HIF1 is on track. There was a contract signed that had to be completed by the 31st of March 2023, or there was going to be a financial penalty. It's on track. They haven't put a spade in the ground yet, so it's hardly, you can't tell a resident of Didcot it's on track.
Can I bring you back to the document we've got, and if you have any questions or any clarifications? I think the points you've made are well made.
Firstly, I mean, it could do with tidying up. I mean, Tony will back me up on this one. Apparently, the piece about NPR3 being on track and everything like that, it doesn't describe it, and it says plan submission expected late 2023. Well, Julie knows about this. It's in 2 sections, and we're going to deliver the northern section, OCC, but the southern section is up to Bloor Homes when they deliver it. According to this, it looks like that the whole of NPR3 is being built at the same time with plan submission in late 2025, unless I'm wrong. Councillor Roberts, you can agree. We don't know when the southern section is being delivered yet, do we?
I think Councillor Roberts is not here to represent her position as on OCC.
Fine with it. That is the situation. So that's a bit misleading, because if someone reads that report, they think that the NPR3 road is on track and it's going to be delivered or planned submissions at the end of this year. A part of it is, but not the other half. So it needs clarification on that one. But again, that will bring cycling, which again would have improved a lot of the stuff on here. So I think, some of it's a bit disingenuous. It makes it look more on track than it actually is. So
do you have then any specific recommendations that you'd like us to send back to our cabinets to help improve?
I think if it's a public document, if they can read it, maybe put back on track HIF1 or something like that. But I'll clarify some of it. I think some of the wording of what the progress we're at is not ideal.
Councillor Morgan, did you want to?
So yeah, like any very large project, clearly both of those are not SODC ones, so therefore SODC to advise. But lots of projects get re-baselined all the time, and we're talking about where we are with the current baseline, or OCC are talking about where they are with the current baseline. We are on track according to the latest plan. And yes, it's clear most of us would have wanted the NPR delivered far in advance of when it is going to be delivered.
So to avoid actually, it's not Northern Perimeter Road.
Yes.
For those of us who live closer to Swindon and don't understand.
Apologies. It's the completion of a road around the northern edge of Didcot, around the north of the lake.
Yeah. Thank you.
Councillor Katie Rowe. Thank you. I'd like to say I absolutely echo everything that Councillor Snowden was saying there, in lots of ways. And I think you're absolutely right that the whole concept, and this is the general point of Didcot Garden Town, is not just in Didcot, all around Didcot, is like no one understands how it's a garden town plan. I have to say, now I'm looking at this health plan, it's a lot more obvious, and actually this seems to be a lot more community rooted and understandable. And I think it's great that you use the public health the profiles. I have to say I work with public health, but I wasn't actually involved in this particular profile. But it's obviously really a really good plan. But it's another plan. So I mean, what I'd be thinking as a sort of in Scrutiny is, how are you, Council Organ, as the cabinet member, going to ensure that this plan is actually put into practice? First of all, is my first question, and what are your plans for that, and how are you going to sort of hold with the sort of fire, if you like? And secondly, just in the bit was it? I think it's a community activation, well-being, and then the physical space area. I don't see anything about stewardship and handing over to the community of various work or land or playgrounds and that sort of stuff, which I think has been a bit of a problem in the past. I think in terms of the new developments, in terms of, you know, playgrounds, whatever, community buildings, etc. Where do we see that real activation of the community, i.e. handing it over to them so they can work on it? And what are we as District Council Planning Authority doing to ensure that the contracts with developers is actually working properly? And my third point was just going, and I know you're not really talking about this, but I'm going to bring it in anyway. The draft Dig Up Garden Town programme, I completely agree. You know, what does it mean by on track? We all know some of these projects are not on track at all, but we're happily, it seems you're happily as a cabinet member and as the cabinet putting out a public document that says things that are, some of it is basically not true, I'm afraid to say, and I just don't think that should be accepted really. And the other point is, of course, it's a good Dig Up Garden Town. I think 4 or 5 of these projects are roads, which is a bit of a shame in my point of view. But we're talking about, you know, cycling infrastructure, green infrastructure, that sort of stuff. The action plan is massive roads.
A cycle bridge over Milton Heights would really go a long way.
Thank you, Councillor Cook.
And actually, the you know, as you know, the Science Vale, the one that I completely agree with you as well, the one about the Science Vale, which is it, active travel network that has been closed. Well, part of that is actually from where I live, Culham Science Centre to Abingdon. There's no sign of that, but it's been closed. And I know this is about plans and not about infrastructure. I am confused about what was said earlier about some things being transferred into business as usual. So where's the governance there? Well, what point is it transferred to business as usual? What part of it is it part of Dig Up Garden Plan governance? You know, how are you overseeing all of that?
Okay. So I've
So
had
lots of things.
quite a lot of questions there, and I'll try and go through some of them and apologise if I miss any. But the first question was how we're going to measure progress, and there'll be regular meetings with me and officers about looking at that and report back about how that's going on, and that will come back to council without trying to overwhelm people with a massive report every 5 minutes. But that will come back to council, so that will be on track. You've made a number of the same points as Councillor Snowden with regard to a delay and very, very slow handover of certain facilities. I think everyone is aware that certainly on Great Western Park, which is the bit I represent on the district alongside Councillor Snowden, some of those things should have been handed over by now, but haven't been. But we'll be chasing it on that one. The third point was about being on track. We can only measure against the latest agreed programme. So we're measuring against the latest agreed programme. I share concerns about the number of road projects. I think we have a slightly different position on some of them, which is a fair and honest disagreement between members about what should and shouldn't be built. As far as business as usual is concerned, the Milton flyover, I'm not sure whether Councillor Cook, whether it was ever an agreed policy on either South or Vale. And I think the reference to business as usual is it would have to go back into the county pot and be built up and be paid for as business as usual from
it was.
I'm just saying I don't know the answer to that question. Sorry, but I think that's where we are with that one in terms of it is not a currently funded or planned scheme within the Garden Town scheme, so it would have to come from business as usual from the county.
Chair, I'm sorry. I'm going to be working with Candida about recording some of these steers. I just want to make sure I got this right because there's been quite a bit of debate. Does that help? Is that permissible? So, broadly, and this will be written far better by Candida than I'm expressing it, but what members seem to be saying is that they want better contextualising and more long-term perspectives in some of the report than is currently visible. Where there are changes to the agreed programme, the report should refer to prior programmes so that they don't evade governance, if you like, and that's, I don't mean that anyone's doing it deliberately, but evade governance because they just changed the target so that the old target is no longer recorded. And clarity on the governance on business as usual tasks should be captured in the document so there's visibility for members here and the public. Is that, I got those, is that the main points you were making? Because it's been quite a broad.
Just one more, yes, one more that I said, which was about, and you brought it up about stewardship and handing over to the community and in that healthy didcot. I'm wondering why there's not more of it in that, and that's just a new thing, which I think if you agree and you think that is an issue, can we get this in this action plan? And then you can hold it on a policy level, on a strategic level, but it is something that, you know, as a cabinet member, as a Lib Dem cabinet, you're saying that this is something we want to aim for.
Don't see a problem with that, but I don't think many of those were originally badged as Didcot Garden Town, but I take the point about the handover.
They can be now, yeah, but they can be now, can't they? Because they're in this healthy plan.
So to
just wanted to make just a quick point. So the name of it I thought was problematic too. So calling it Didcot Garden Town when there doesn't appear to be much gardens about it. It's more about health.
Means growth.
Health.
More like just Didcot.
well, I think we're 10 years into the I will bring this item. We've got 2 more items left to go, so I do want to.
Can I just pick one very quickly? My next one was going to be about green space, green infrastructure map. I'm really concerned about this because, as Tony, you're fully aware, we ain't got much green space left in Didcot. It's, you know, I always used to joke and say that in my area now you can put a Wendy house, let alone anything else in there. But developers are building on. We've got tiny little triangles outside the schools that they're trying to get planning permission on. They've got an application in to build 2 semi-detached houses next to a load of shops. So could I ask if something can be looked at so that we actually get we can see it's a problem. We can see in this that it's all gone. Can we not the Garden Town group help get some village green status or community asset protection for the last remaining bits? I mean, we haven't got a 5-year land supply, so as you're well aware, they're trying to tackle conservation areas, putting applications in to build on conservation areas and things. So it'd be nice if, you know, just to give a little bit to the residents about garden, you know, and say, well, we'll protect the few blades of grass you've still got left. Can the council or the Didcot Garden Group somehow help residents when they put forward for a community asset space or a village green space?
Certainly, I know Charlotte's been working on the green infrastructure. And I'll come back after Charlotte's spoken, if that's okay.
Actually, Emma is leading on the green infrastructure project now, but the green infrastructure, what we're seeking to do with the new programme is expand the influence. So the cabinet both cabinets had agreed that we would have a project, we would have a budget for 4 green infrastructure projects in Lady Grove and around and in the centre of Didcot, and we have 2 others around the south edge of Didcot, and a cycle route through the southeast. What we're trying to do with this programme is actually provide a hook, if you like, for actually doing more of the green infrastructure projects that were identified in the adopted green infrastructure strategy, so that we can carry on with more of those projects and expand. I don't think that the Garden Town, either as an advisory board or as a team of officers, has the power or the authority to provide protection for green spaces that are there, but by showing the importance of them and by improving certain places and making them more multifunctional, and getting the community involved in that decision making and that design work, we can create that protection by getting more people involved.
Surely they can add weight if a residents group put in an application, the Garden Town can support that protection or something, can they not?
I think I do want to move us on, but I think I'm going to note that point as one of our recommendations. Thank you, Councillor Stone. My apologies, Councillor Gregory, you've been waiting for ages to speak as well, and then Councillor Roberts will come to you, and then we will move on.
Cool. Yeah, I just wanted to ask about number 10. It says about like the Didcot LC width, and that's complete. What work is being done to? Is there like an action plan behind that? Because obviously the plan is complete, but the infrastructure that's in the plan isn't, I'm assuming. So what's being done to ensure that that's on track?
Can I come back to you in correspondence after the meeting?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you.
So,
I was just going to give a very short potted history. I at one point asked for a good example of garden towns, and then I slowly began to become aware that Didcot Garden Town was probably the good example that they were trying to write up, and that there wasn't one before that. And so we were actually flying blind by a template that came out from government under the auspices of a garden town. They then did the same for garden villages. That template had a lot of projects that you might want to look at, and lots of funding for revenue and no funding for capital, all of which was quite limited because it meant you couldn't actually implement anything that you discovered you needed. And this is now prolonged from that and digital template. This is now under the two different district councils to try and take the information that came out of that and actually put it into action on the ground. And as David Rain said, make it about the people who live there, not about template projects that came out of the system. So the question, I'm really keen. I really like the health work there, but again, a lot of the people when this was started in the census of 2011 weren't there. So that's why that's kind of happening now, because that's available now. They've lived there 10 years. We've got the information. So you have to kind of have a historic view on, you can't do things when they weren't there in the first place. I also was wanting to ask about the green infrastructure. This is my own real question, which was there was a project about linking up some of the garden, the green infrastructure around Didcot and linking it together. Is that part of this? Because I tried to see whether that was still in the overall plan, because that was a good way of taking a historic theoretical approach and saying, right, well, we now got 4 of these areas. We're now going to make a pathway to be able to get from one to the other.
Yeah, I can answer that one. Yes, so there's 4 zones that we're working on. As Charlotte mentioned, we've got Ladygrove, so quite a lot of the paths on Ladygrove, but particularly Ladygrove Loop. We've got the National Cycle Network route going from Jubilee Roundabout all the way down to Millennium Wood and Mowbray Fields. And then Zone 3 is from Mowbray Fields through to Great Western Park. And sorry, that's Zone 4. What I've done, sorry. Zone 1 is the town centre. Zone 2 is Ladygrove. Zone 3 is the south going down to Mowbray, and then Zone 4 is from Mowbray Fields all the way around to Great Western Park. So the green infrastructure is improving the routes so that people can travel more easily, more safely through those 4 routes, and they all link to one another. And also it just increases the access to those green spaces that are around those areas as well. So that's kind of how we're trying to work that. And then within that, we have a wayfinding scheme that we're also putting in. So there'll be signage also encouraging people. We've made a particular reference to Millennium Wood and Mowbray Fields and Ladygrove Loop all the way through the town, so that people can, if you live on Ladygrove and you see the sign for Millennium Wood and you think, well, I don't even know that, I didn't even know it was there. I've lived in Didcot for 30 years now, and the first 10 years I didn't know Mowbray Fields even existed, because there's no signage, there's no information that I came
We have had the
across.
wayfinding report through this
Yeah,
committee last
so that's, yeah, so exactly that. So they're all helping one another, and then hopefully the Healthy Didcot project will then have that green infrastructure and the wayfinding, particularly for the Didcot South and Didcot West, in order to help people to navigate, to encourage pedestrianisation and accessing green spaces, not just for their health, but also their mental health and well.
Thank you very much. Right, I am good. We've been on this one for an hour now, so I am going to move us on. We have, I think it's very clear we've all got, there's lots of community members here with a lot of knowledge and understanding and thoughts about this project and the Garden Town. So what I'd like to do is try and condense everything said. I think the committee see in this change of terms of reference a real opportunity to engage new businesses and residents, and to think about how to engage parishes most effectively, to consider who is most relevant, who should have input in what way, and we would ask Cabinet to work with officers to think very carefully about perhaps what this opportunity allows you to do, and to get more people involved who perhaps have not felt included previously. There was Control F on Oxley. I think there's also a real sense that the committee would like, we really like this change of direction, which Councillor Rain talked about, to what Didcot people need in their town. And taking deprivation and health evidence into account is absolutely vital, and I think we absolutely support that work. But I think we also feel that all of that work, there's no point keeping it as plans and actions. It must be rooted in community. It must take the community seriously. It must listen to communities and to people in Didcot who do feel very left behind, and we can see the evidence of that. So the question then for the Cabinet then is, how do we take these plans and reports, and how do we hand power and resources to the community to allow them ownership of these changes? There was a question then about, when we're talking about in the programme, what does on track mean? And so I think we would like Cabinet to be more open about how timelines are changing, not just say, well, this is on track related to the latest timeline, but to say, well, this is how on track has changed, to understand more, be more honest and transparent about perhaps changes in timelines. And then there's this question, the importance of protection for green spaces and linking them up, and how vital those are to people in Didcot, and I think we probably all endorse that. And then there was the final question, which is about, and it relates, I think it's about on track, which is, where is the governance, how is governance being taken into account when projects are being transferred in and out of the Didcot Garden Town programme? Is that a fair enough summation of the things we would like Cabinet to take into account?
Very quick, no, just generalise it. Emma there explained about the green infrastructure thing, but I think we've got a fantastic report here. It goes down to such detail about where the obesity is and all those sort of stuff. The green space you're talking about, I mean, Ladegrove has, I think, one of the highest life expectancy in the country, and they're putting the green infrastructure there, whereas the areas listed in there where even Didcot South, East and Didcot West, where they've got all the problems, could we not use the detail in this and do that, rather than just they've got some infrastructure, we put it where everyone's healthy already? That's just,
yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that comes back to that point about directing resources to what people need, and really using this report now that we've got it. It would have been ideal if we'd had it 10 years ago, but now that we've got it, to really use it, and but to allow also people to take ownership that this isn't just. So thank you. Any other comments that anyone, is that Candida, you've got that? You can always come back to it.
I've got about 50, I'll send you them later.
Chair, can I just say thank you for the input for you and for members. It's been fantastic, and just thank again the officers for the work they're doing on this, because it's fantastic, and we'll take everything that's been said here plus Councillor Snowden's 50-page report that he's going to send on. But yes, thank you very much.
All right, thank you for your time, Senior. Thank you to all the team for joining us. Let's take a 2-minute break now, and then we can check if you've got your county council colleagues online. But let's take a 2-minute just so that we can swap over, and if anyone needs to get any water or go to the loo, we will we'll start back again in 2 minutes.
That's right. Happy? Here we go.
Okay, welcome back, everybody. Thank you for your patience, those of you who've been waiting through that last item. So I move on now to our next item, which is our review of progress of the Council's Joint Air Quality Action Plan. I'm really pleased to welcome Councillors Sam James Laurie and Councillor Hayley Gascoigne, sitting in a different chair than she has been often in this room. You're very welcome. We also have officers in support. We have Simon Hill, Carmen Jubilas Martinez, Scott Williams, I believe, and Paul Fielding online. And we also have guests from Oxfordshire County Council here this evening. You're very welcome. We have Ashley Hayden and Melissa. I apologise, my eyesight is not good enough to see your surname, but you're both very welcome, Ashley and Melissa from County Council, to talk to us about air quality. So, Councillor Gascoigne, Councillor James Laurie, please can I invite you to introduce this item?
Members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to present this update on both councils' 2023 Air Quality Action Plan. This report outlined the progress made in delivering the 17 measures set out to improve the air quality across South Oxfordshire and Vale of the White Horse. Since the adoption of the AQAP in early 2024, we've seen measurable improvements in air quality across the districts. These positive trends reflect well on both the targeted actions undertaken and the broader changes in technology and public behaviour. Notably, the revocation of the Wallingford and Abingdon air quality management areas mark a significant milestone, with further revocations anticipated in Henley, Watlington and Marching. This purpose of the report is to review the actions completed to date and to provide members with the opportunity to ask questions and seek clarity on any aspect of the plan's implementation. We now welcome any questions from comments from the committee, and we are supported by the officers from the Environmental Protection team as well.
Thank you, Sam. Would any of the officers like to add anything at this point, or any of our colleagues from OCC? You're very welcome to if you like. Should we just jump into questions? All right, let's do that. Committee members, does anybody want to start us off?
May not be a question rather than a comment, but it appears that the Botley A34 issue, we can't do anything about. So is that what we're saying?
Obviously, it's unfortunately our colleagues from the National Highways didn't come today and couldn't attend. So yeah, I think you obviously see the update. That's what they provide us with. So it's a tricky one because it is a major trump road. But air quality is improving. I think this year it's not exceeded on the national objective again.
This is the second or third year where levels are meeting the national objectives, which is good news. I think in terms of the feasibility study, for the Botley APMA is an area that covers the area around the A34. The specific points where we identified exceedance of the objectives are on a footpath, not necessarily where the houses are located, as they are a bit further back and there's fence and a hedge in between. So yeah, I guess the feasibility studies have been that the National Highways have been working on are things to try and isolate the footpath from traffic emissions. So something like a fence, they reviewed years ago, and it would have to be a pretty tall fence basically, which wouldn't really work in the area because the houses are quite close to the road. And yeah, the update they provide is that all of the measures they looked into weren't really feasible for the area because of how it's set up.
Yes, I appreciate that. That's a bit disappointing.
Yeah. I should confirm, as Simon just kind of alluded to, we did invite Highways to join us, Highways England to join us today, and they have not. So they did have an opportunity. Right, Councillor Gregory.
On I don't know what page it is, but page 4. Develop a low emission taxi strategy. What does that look like? So promoting low emissions transport, and then yeah, how do we encourage taxis to have low emitting taxis?
Do you want to come in, Carl, or shall I pick it up? Basically, it's obviously our licensing team have a taxi policy, and in that there's incentives for people to use greener vehicles, electric vehicles, and I think it's due to be updated again in a couple of years' time. It's just seeing how we can encourage industry to move, but obviously there's cost implications for those bits. So it's finding that balance, and that's sort of the basic premise, is trying to improve the taxi fleet to go greener and newer vehicles which are less emissions than those bits. That's it's broadly working with our licensing team around that strategy to try and.
How do we incentivize? What's that look like?
In relation, well, I don't know specific details. I think it's around what the fees are, and also the policy restricting how long we can have a Euro 5 or an older vehicle will be out of date from. Certainly, you can't be a taxi driver if you've got an old vehicle. So it's trying to encourage those bits. I think that's Jim. I don't know anything else, but
are those political decisions that our cabinet members can?
I don't know how the licensing strategy is adopted. I imagine it comes to the council maybe licensing to agree and adopt. So there'll be questions that would come up at that point. I would have thought. I think that'll have. That's terrible.
I am interested in paragraph 11 of the report. I believe it was. It talks about there being more people taking buses, cycling and walking, but it kind of makes that statement without any backup evidence. And I wondered what evidence we have that statement.
Yeah. So as you probably know, Chair, that before these reports come to you guys, they come to us, and that was the exact question that I asked. And so the wording have been altered slightly, but I would invite one of the officers to respond to that one.
If Scott's
Scott, yeah.
Scott, I hear your name being whispered. Do we have the evidence for that statement?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. The wording was altered with regards to the take-up of electric vehicles predominantly, and obviously publications in the national media and the like, sort of promoting, and sort of the incentives that there are with the take up of electric vehicles. With regards to public transport, I can't provide that information now, but that's certainly something that we can take away as officers and find working with either county colleagues or National Highway colleagues.
Perhaps I wondered, to the county council, do you have county-wide figures for evidence, different modes of travel currently?
That's something I could take back to my public transport colleagues, but that's something that, as I say, public transport would have to sort of give a full answer on there. So unfortunately, that's not something I can sort of comment on this evening.
Okay, because that's a fairly key statement.
Can I just ask a bit further on that, because I highlighted exactly that and was going to a question, and I wondered if this was in relation to any of the air quality monitoring areas that we're evoking, or it's just a general statement, because that was. Can you drill down to the evidence of the air quality management area?
It's more of a general statement.
It's more of a general statement.
Okay. You're picking out one or two key characters which have led to the improvements. It's a tricky one. You got COVID.
Yeah, I would suggest that if you don't have the evidence, it shouldn't be in the report. That's my opinion.
Councillor Roberts.
I've actually got two much more basic technical questions. One is on what are we measuring, and I'm guessing that this is all on NOx gases, and I'm also guessing it's basically done on the tubes, the diffusion tubes, which actually correlate information as an average across a month. Is that a correct statement?
Yeah.
So the problem I have is that when we're dealing with members of the public who have health issues, they have a health issue on a particular day. A diffusion tube across a month is not going to help one way or the other. And I've made this point for quite a long while now, and I don't seem to see any movement about the way we actually measure this information, because I think what members of the public, especially COPD and other health problems, asthma for a start, actually require a live data output so that they know, oh, data quality, hair quality is really bad today. I won't go out. I'll stay indoors with my ventilator and I'll go out tomorrow when the air's clear. Now, with the way we're running this, we can't, none of our residents can actually do that. We can't produce live data, and we're not measuring PM2.5, not PM10. And I know they are probably under the levels, but we don't know what the levels should actually be long term, especially in my view with PM2.5, because that is much more particle of the level that we know of long term health issues like asbestosis, pneumonia, etc.
I think that the first thing is the air quality action plan, as per DEFRA guidance, is designed to work on bringing levels down to meeting the national objective within the declared APMAs. All of the declared APMAs in South and Vale have been declared because of the annual average objective for nitrogen dioxide has been reached before. So the hourly objective as opposed to the annual one, we don't have any evidence that that has ever been breached in the districts, and the APMAs have not been declared because of these short spikes that are addressed with the hourly objective. In terms of how the diffusion tubes really help us understand whether the spikes of pollution are happening in our districts, there is a correlation between annual averages and hourly averages of NO2. So usually it's understood that when the annual average reaches levels over 60 micrograms, then the hourly objective is being exceeded. And this is including DEFRA guidance, and there's examples across the country from APMAs that have been declared because of the annual average, but also the hourly objectives. So by monitoring NO2 with diffusion tubes, we can understand whether the hourly objective is also being breached or not.
And I suppose you've got to come in. We do have 4 analyzers in. We've got one in Abingdon, one in Wallingford, one in Wattington, and one in Henley, which are measuring every minute data, which is then reported directly onto our data
One in
point.
Botley,
And one in Botley.
where the NOx has been over.
And one in Botley, I think.
Basis for 20.
I think National Highways did explore it, but I think they've not. They've not put an in because National Highways is there. That's their area. But yeah, I take the point forward.
Also live there.
Yeah, no, I take that forward. And I suppose from the health data viewpoint, on the Oxonair website, correct me if I'm wrong, Carl, you can sign up for a health update. If there's a pollution spike or incident happening or coming, it will warn you that, as you say, maybe plan your trip out tomorrow or the next day, let that episode pass. So that service is available on our Oxonair website.
This is something we've promoted on social media as well, both from Business Council and UCC as it's a joint project.
Not only is it Stanley Close, also the footpath you mentioned is a designated school route for children to walk by the A34 with no safety barrier through an AQMA to get to school. Just got that. Drop that little gem in.
I've got Melissa online with her hand up. Would you like to jump in, Melissa?
Yeah, I just wanted to add a bit about what work we've done at county, and we, in partnership with all the other districts, we've done a modelling exercise because automatic monitors are very expensive, so it's really hard to distribute them throughout the district. So we've done a modelling exercise which takes into account all of the data we have in Oxfordshire, including diffusion tubes, including sensors as a part of school streets, and also the automatic monitors that Simon has just mentioned, and all of those that are spread out within Oxfordshire. So we now have modelled concentrations for PM2.5 and NO2 in every location basically in Oxfordshire. So we're happy to share this data and just make you aware of that. And then also what Simon said, we have forecast data on Oxonair. So anyone who signs up to that service will receive a notification when there's high predicted air pollution levels. So yeah, I just wanted to add that in.
Is that on the Live Air Network? I can't remember the name of the website. Is that data?
Yes,
Oxonair, I think. Is that what? So yeah.
I think it is that. Called that, isn't it? And that's on that's now on the Live Network.
Yeah,
yeah. Shout. Can we shout about that?
We can talk to
Because it didn't used to be on it.
Yeah,
And that's the real plus.
I think that's the main addition that we've achieved in the website in 2024, the live alert system where people can sign up and an email or a text.
I mean, that would be extremely useful for my residents, and now I know about it, I will pass the message on.
Thank you. We can pass that. Councillor Stephen.
Yeah, on N1, the box around March. So I think you need to take into account in your modelling the Dalton Barracks and potentially Cicero, but certainly Dalton Barracks and the impact that will have. So I was briefed a little bit on the options, and they're quite underwhelming unless you've got 100 million for a bypass. So,
if I'm coming on in relation to Dalton Barracks, I know our planning colleagues as part of the updating the local plan, they've done some air quality modelling work looking at the potential impacts of Dalton Barracks on the sort of nearby AQMAs. Coming, correct me if I'm wrong. So that work has been done.
Okay.
To pick up because of that, there's a number of housing going in around Dalton.
And it's going to make it potentially worse.
Yeah, that potential, but I don't remember the detail. But we can find the details and send that around. But I can't remember the specific outcome.
But it could also be an opportunity if there was, if the Dalton Barracks were being forced to build a road somewhere else, then build a road to relieve that bottleneck and the air quality there.
Yeah, we can take that one.
And the other question was, so where's the tube in Abingdon, the diffusion tube?
To you, Lavington. The continuous analyzer is in the attic of Masons.
Okay.
And then we have, I want to say, over 10 computing tubes across the town centre, but also the outskirts of Lavington. If you want to see where they are located in the Oxonair website, there's an interactive map and you can select whether you want to see the diffusion tubes or the
Or just like reassurance that they're in the worst air quality zones.
well, yeah, they have been, I think the monitoring sites were decided on, their locations were decided on when the AQMA was adopted.
Okay.
And usually they would have been, yeah, the highest pollution hotspots.
Okay. Thanks.
I would like to ask Cabinet members a bit more about what Cabinet see as their priorities. We've obviously got quite a lot of focus on the 4 AQMAs and whether they are in or out. But as lots of us will, or all of our members will represent lots and lots of wards that aren't represented by that, what's the general direction of travel in terms of air quality as far as you guys are concerned?
So for me, I would like it to roll out to more places. There's a lot more development going on and have the tubes in places that we aren't. But it is, I think, one of the, you do one, then you do another, then you do another, then you do another, instead of tackling it all at once. So my priority would be for us to roll it out, especially in places where there is now a lot more new builds compared to where there was when it first started.
Okay, so I have a slightly different take. And that, so I'm obviously new to this role, and my interaction with air quality so far has mainly been reading this report, other than what I knew about it before I took on this role. And my understanding has been that you know, we're following guidance from DEFRA. We're doing the things and installing the things and having the plans in where we're exceeding certain thresholds, and that's appropriate given the resources that councils have and so on. So I would very much look to officers, but also to be data led into where we're putting these. And I do hear the concerns about, and I've had people, members contact me already about, you know, if we're looking at these averages, but what does it mean sort of on an hourly basis, and what that means for the children that are walking to school or the people with health conditions and stuff. And I've been reassured on a number of occasions that we're following the data, and overall, as you can see from the report, it is coming down. And you know, we can't be responsible for all of that. It's just a general trend in the way that you know, vehicles are. You know, it's not just electric vehicles; it's just even combustion engines are generally cleaner. So for me, it's about being data led. But yeah, how to identify those areas where we might have concerns that we don't have concerns today, it's a good question, and I would be speaking to officers about that.
If I can come in and answer that to a degree, basically we look at, as part of our role with the planning regime, we are statutory consultees for air quality control and a whole variety of elements. So when air quality comes in, they may require an air quality assessment as part of that planning application, which we then review and comment on. So that sort of, we are sort of picking up at the planning stages, potential air quality issues, and deciding whether or not to do any more work there, or pushing the developer to address any concerns. That's something we do. So I hope that helps.
Thank you. That's a case for
Yeah, so just following up a little bit on what the chair said about what you plan to do. So what I'm gathering from you is that a lot of this air quality is approved almost by the way. Things have happened. It's not really any actions that we can say that we've taken to improve this, or you've taken them. So I was wondering, there are a couple of questions I wanted to ask specifically. First of all, I believe, I'm not quite sure about this, so correct me if I'm wrong, but there are higher WHO standards, so the World Health Organization standards, that we could monitor against, but we decided not to. And I'm just wondering if that's an action that you were thinking of taking. And secondly, with regards to so you know, taking up my colleague here, my councillor say a point about the Marcham bypass, which you know may or may not happen. But what sort of policies do you have in terms of new roads, new developments, and we know that new roads all over the world forever have induced more traffic. So to balance that, to stop that more traffic happening. So for example, in Marcham, do you have any restrictions that you put for the village of Marcham, for example, if there was a bypass created, or if you have in Dalton Barracks, what sort of restrictions, active travel measures would you put in, and how do you see these interlinking? So active travel, that sort of work, and the planning with the air quality. So what's your vision for that forward? Because as far as I can see, we're just saying air quality is improved, which is great, and we're all happy about that. But it's not anything we did, or you did. So
yeah, so I think maybe I've oversimplified it. So I do think that things are happening because, well, some of it is not what we've done, it is just as you described and as I described. But as the action plan outlines here, there are actions we can take, and there are some things where we can't just wait for it to come down naturally, such as the Botley one, which I did actually walk along the other day, and it is horrible to walk alongside D34, and the air quality is dreadful, and so we do have to take some more drastic action there. But you're right, it's how do we get that into our policy and into our thinking, and me and both my fellow councillor here in South cabinet member, we are the cabinet members for environment, for climate action, and so there is that. I hope there is that joined up thinking. There is certainly in my mind. I don't want to speak for my fellow cabinet member here speaking in motion, but and so I think there is that joined up approach, but yeah, you probably want to see that in more sort of concrete terms, and that's something I can talk to the officers about.
And do you know why we're not signing up, or one of the standards?
That's something I wasn't aware that we could sort of take it to that next level. We're following the DEFRA guidance here, but perhaps one of the officers can respond to that one.
Yeah, so basically we very much follow what DEFRA have adopted. At the moment, DEFRA haven't adopted the World Health Organization levels. I did see I think a few MPs are taking a private member's bill forward to try and force the government to go down that route. So it's almost we very much follow what DEFRA tells us to do, and at the moment we've got there. I suppose on a broader piece, our colleagues from county have got their own air quality strategy, which is looking at the WHO levels, because they've got a bit more flexibility about because it's what they can do from the transport network. So it's been considered at that level, but I think from our view, we're very much dictated to by what DEFRA requires to do.
So we can't actually monitor to a higher level.
Well, we're monitoring. It's where we've got to achieve, if that makes sense. Yes,
but we can monitor it. And
we're monitoring, so the monitoring continues. The monitoring we're doing, but it's at the moment we're aiming at the DEFRA level, which is 40 micrograms, not the WHO level, which we're not required to achieve as of yet. But that may well change.
Did you want to comment about
that? I was just going to say, in regards to restrictions and sort of permissions to try and keep it low, I don't actually know what the SODC can put in as a restriction, but it's something I will take away to ask, because it would be nice to keep it lower and get it lower than actually end up going backwards.
I was just going to say, I think in our action plan as well, there is a number of measures that are area-wide measures, and they apply to all areas across the district. So they're not really focused on an APML as the one would be, but they apply to the whole district.
And if I give a little bit of background to the air quality action plan, it's almost the process for DEFRA is, if we've got an air quality problem, it's bad enough, we declare an air quality management area. Once they've declared, we've got to come up with an air quality action plan to tackle those issues in that AQMA. And that's almost as far as the regime, the sort of the air quality regime goes from our side. Whereas it's nice that the county's got a stretch now, which we've fed into, which is a bit more just county wide and a bit more broader, which is I think, as you say, we're revoking AQMAs fairly quickly. So what do we then sort of pick up? Monitoring continues, but how do we keep the emphasis on improving local air quality?
Thank you, and that's what, yeah.
Thank you. Any other comments or points on this report, Councillor Snowden?
I'll come in quickly. I was pleased to hear about the taxis, encouraging them to be a bit more like electric vehicles and things. I won't ask how much we spent on diesel vehicles last year, don't I? Electric charging points. How many Didcot's obviously the largest urban area, how many in our car park in Didcot, how many electric charging
I
points are
don't know the specifics about that. So what our project, I'm not
I
sure.
think that's probably
Yeah,
beyond the
that's-
scope of this
okay.
report. If we can come back to this.
That's for Levi.
Yeah. Okay, so H5, I think it is about the schools and so forth. I'm really interested in that because obviously I fought a long, hard battle to get a school street in Didcot when it wasn't on the agenda and that. And from my understanding, it's going to be up. Phase 3 is going to be Oxford centric. Will you fight for, put your weight behind, councillor? Because I had 2 more that I wanted to do in my division, but it's been split in half now, so they're not in my division any longer. But in Didcot, there's at least 2 other schools that need a school street. Not it's air quality, but also the health that brings and so forth. So would you add your weight behind that as in that role, please? Because really important. It makes a huge difference to that school.
As a man with 4 children, yes, very much.
Yeah, and I would say as well as, Councillor Soden, in my ward capacity, I neighbour yours, so I cycle, walk, drive, all those things past the schools, and it is a nightmare. And air quality for sure, because a lot of them are idling vehicles as well, so that's even worse. But yeah, it's the congestion, it's the safety. Yeah, no, I'm with you on that one. Absolutely.
I would agree as well. In fact, I read this report and instantly emailed my county councillor to say there's a comment in here about county council rolling out school streets. How do we make sure that our local schools are in it? So yeah, I would echo that urging of cabinet to really push on that on our behalf. So Melissa, did you want to jump in on that point?
Yeah, just about school streets. So I think there is one in Didcot at the moment, and we're currently doing a review to find out what other schools can be included. But also just to add that the schools have to register interest as well. So our school engagement officers will reach out to them, and then they need to cooperate with them to implement the school street. So if you want to think about ways to enable the schools to cooperate with our school engagement officers, that's maybe something you need to think about. How can we get schools interested about the scheme beforehand, before they're reached out to, or how can we get them to cooperate and be involved? And yeah, that's just something I wanted to add.
Thank you, Melissa. Yes, that's an important point. So in terms of our discussion then, I'm going to move us to think about how we want to report back to cabinet. I think we've got 4 key points that we've come up with in our discussion. The first was that there's no evidence in this report for statements related to cleaner and more efficient technology, cycling, walking and buses, and we would ask that reports are data-led, evidence-based. So we would feed that back to cabinet, please. I think there was enthusiasm for communications involvement in this to ensure that various resources are being signposted to residents, particularly the Oxon Air website, and different resources particularly related to health issues and tools that residents can use. I think what we're pushing for really as a committee is asking the cabinet to really think politically about what they want to do about air quality. Can we monitor to higher standards than just following the DEFRA regime? What can we do in terms of using air quality as a springboard to push forward our council's commitments to environment and climate action? So I think the WHO targets are an obvious example, but it's about thinking politically about how can we use this push further. And then the school street scheme, again, it's this point that there are other reasons to support school streets beyond just the air quality issue. And so I think this is obviously an insertion point for us as a council to be able to add our weight to those kind of schemes. Have I summed up? Yeah. Any other comments from the committee members? Okay. Any other comments summing up that cabinet members or our colleagues online? No.
Yeah, I just waiting for the episode. Okay. Yeah, I can. No, thank you everybody for those comments. And we do this as a duty that DEFRA set out for our district councils. But I take away your point definitely that we can use that. We're not just ticking a box. That we use this to push forward the other things that are on our agenda, things that we've talked about in this room as well as others about climate action, but other things like safety of children as well. But I just want to
in this report, I am still quite pleased that it is overall, it is a good news story. It demonstrates encouraging progress that we have made. You know, the numbers have come down and it's encouraging. Some of the initiatives in there remain in the early stages, and you know, some of those are not to be delivered by us or even the county council. Their highways, who, as you pointed out, sadly couldn't make it today. But you know, cross-agency collaboration continues to be a strong driver of our progress. So by 2026, we expect only one air quality management area to remain, which is Botley, which will be managed through our routine monitoring activities. So therefore, based on this direction of travel, this will be the final scrutiny committee review of this 2023 AQAP, it's the action plan, before it transitions into standard reporting via the annual status reports that the council submit to DEFRA. So it just remains for me to thank everybody again, so County Council for attending, the officers here at Bayonne South, National Highways, for their input and for their support, and all of you for reviewing this report.
Thank you ever so much for your time this evening, and thank you particularly to our colleagues from OCC for joining us this evening. And officers, thank you very much as well. And if you want to slope out, you're very welcome. We've got one more item for our committee. We spit navel gazing. Everyone else is welcome to finish.
We think we're great. So
yeah, we are welcome. Okay, Candidates just pointed out that at 9 o'clock we will need to vote to extend, but I don't imagine we will just need to go to 9 o'clock. Okay, our final item on our agenda this evening is just to look at a joint scrutiny committee report. That's us. Which is the recommendations of the Scrutiny Task and Finish Group. So to introduce it briefly, we have had a report from the Centre for Governance and Scrutiny early last year, and I and Councillor Gabrishak and Councillor Roberts, Councillor Batstone and Councillors Khan and Arlett, I believe that's everybody, have been on a task and finish group to find out what we want to do, or to think about what we want to do in terms of us as committees, how we want to work, how we want to set our work programme. So this is the recommendations, and I would like to really thank Nick for bringing together all of the comments that have been made, both in the meetings and through emails and comments on documents, to bring this set of recommendations to us today. So Nick, if you would like to introduce the report,
of course,
from the officer's perspective, please.
Chair, most of your members have probably heard this in various forms before, so I'll make it as brief and to the point as I can. So, and you've covered the core issues anyway. Look, I think what members need to hear firstly is that there were a bunch of common themes that came out of the task and finish group. So they had several meetings and a huge quantity of email conversations and telephone conversations with me and other officers. How I boil that down is that taking on board what the Centre for Governance said and taking on board the feedback and the discussions that they had themselves and what their own knowledge was. They wanted scrutiny to be more forward-looking rather than looking back at what's happened in the past, to be looking at the big picture more than while still drilling into the details of particular reports, but looking at the big picture and policy formation and strategy side of things. For there to be more and better engagement between cabinet and scrutiny. You should be sort of twins working together and cooperating to deliver more effective counsel in all regards. And that you should be involved earlier in the process, particularly for things that are politically sensitive matters, so that you can influence, not merely see that after the event saying, well, we would have done it differently, which was, being blunt, was what some of the challenges from the Centre for Governance Studies was saying, was that it was often a little late in the day. Now, the elephant in that room is, of course, local government reorganisation, and the task and finish group were very clear that we had to cut our cloth to make sure that your work was as effective as possible in the context of local government reorganisation. Some of the elements which were in that original report, quite simply, are no longer relevant in the environment we're going to in 2 or 3 years' time. There'll be the new authority. Some of the things had a longer payback, things like that. So, but what is here, you'll see there's quite a lot of recommendations which are set out as 5 to 16. I wouldn't intend to go through them, Chair, but they are all there. They're hopefully fairly clear, fairly straightforward, and the usual smart targets way. They're trying to identify who is going to do those things, as well as setting out what they are. So try to make them clear as I could. Any good bits have probably come from Candida. Any confusion and error comes from me. So through you, Chair, any questions on that or any suggestions on any of those recommendations? Very welcome. Though obviously I suspect you'll probably answer more than I will, but ready when you are.
Thank you. I would just say the one element of the whole relationship that both of us have not really mentioned is the support that we get from Democratic Services team, which is incredibly important, both Adriana Partridge and Candida. And our concern, a lot of our concern has been about ensuring that there's not too much pressure placed on officers as well. So it's about us taking control of our work programme, but in a way that is manageable for everybody, particularly the wonderful officers who support us as committees. So committee, do anybody have any comments, things they think are particularly important, or questions?
I've got one comment, in as much as I can see how LGR is actually going to affect the whole process. But I'm also worried that LGR is the process, and how is scrutiny going to interact with that process as it rolls out? The one that leaps to mind, being a worry all along for LNG and scrutiny, has been the waste project, because that has had a timeline looming over everybody all the way through it. And like most projects, timelines tend to drift. And if it drifts, it's going to hit right in the middle of everything. So how do we have any recommendations about how we're going to tackle that kind of problem where deadlines are going to crunch with LGR?
Thank you, Chair, through you. So I'd say firstly that the stuff in here, the recommendations that talk about the link between Cabinet and scrutiny are very much bedded in the conversations that the Task and Finish Group had about LGR and making sure that we don't become paralysed between now and the new council being established, and that the council officers continue to offer not just the business as usual work, which you'd always expect us to do, but also supporting the projects which we can. But that when we're talking about capacity of the organisation, or we're talking about shortening timescales and prioritisation, that those discussions are led by members. Cabinet ultimately make those decisions on the work list, but the scrutiny plan ties in very tightly with that to make sure that your check and challenge, I was saying earlier about the earlier engagement, absolutely takes into account all of those issues with the local government organisation, because it's a really important time for members to take control of those resources. Capacity, we still don't know completely with confidence some of the timescales. Specifically on waste, I think I'm probably able to say that most of the time scales about that aren't set by LGR. They're set by the need to continue to deliver high, excellent quality waste services, collection services, and the new debt. So that's in hand and not directly linked to LGR, but is another example of where you as members, both councils, are going to need to lead and guide on what your priorities are, what comes top of the list, and what resources needs to go. Whether it's massive things like waste, which is fundamental to why we're here, but also some of the other more optional bits of what we do that isn't business as usual, where the resources get put in the short and medium term, because there isn't a long term. But so hopefully several of those recommendations will tie into that relationship, trust between scrutiny and cabinet, and the mutual respect for the views that cabinet will have for what you say.
Got one follow-up on that, because the other area that's really worrying me is climate action. And that's something that I think all parties of wherever we end up down the road are supporting. On the other hand, because it's not a statutory duty as such, not much of it is a statutory duty, we were all being very forward looking and pushing that to happen really quickly. But that's not going to fit in the funding package, is it? Because we don't know what the funding package is going to be. So that kind of thing, that's my big worry, is that the very thing you said, you don't want things to pause, you don't want things to stagnate, and we were really being quite innovative. Is that going to just hit a block because of LGR and everybody going, well, we don't know where the funding's coming from, we can't do it?
I'll just respond to that before I let Nick come back in. It's because we did have a meeting, the chairs of the scrutiny meetings, we did have a really useful and interesting meeting with the leaders of both councils and some of the cabinet members. And it was Councillor Philip Over Rivers who actually also had a concern that actually so much capacity and resource is going to be taken up with just navigating LGR that we're all going to lose sight of the things that actually are really important to us as councils. And that comment that she made has stuck with me since that conversation about the importance of our role in saying, no, this is in our plan, these are in our council plans, we've said this is important, what can we deliver? So cabinet were very welcoming of that, and particularly precisely your concern is how do we continue to deliver as much as we can of the things that we think are important above what we have to deliver within the next 18 months, 2 years. So yeah, absolutely. Nick.
No, I've got nothing to add to that. I think that says it all. Thank you.
Yes, Councillor Casey.
I'm very, very supportive of all these actions. I think they're very important, and they've obviously come out of that spreadsheet that I saw belatedly because I was come back as come into chair the scrutiny itself. Just in the light of what you said about LGR and the fact that it's maybe 2 or 3 years, I'm just conscious that when you said smart targets, there's not really time on when these will happen. So that's my only sort of query would be, when is this going to happen? Easy to drift. And then related to that, would do to do with the resource, the support resource. We have the scrutiny, and will this need a new resource? And if it does, or a bit more resources, somebody's going to be brought in to do these. Is that going to happen? When will it happen? And we will all time.
So no, you're absolutely right. There isn't timescales in it. What I will say is, and again, this is Candida's work more than mine, many of these things have already started to be put in place. And so some of the meeting that your chair was just talking about is an example of that improvement and the laying the foundations of a protocol to work within the LGA guidance. And we're already pulling together several of the other bits about the way, the timing of these things, the way the work plan works here. Candida and I are going to be working on that to continue to try and bring it to an earlier stage compared to the cabinet work plan, for example. Right? So some of it has started and is being baked in. It's a good point on the how quickly the other things will happen, but I haven't really got an answer to you. I haven't put it in there. We could add it in for the reports, because this will go on to full council at the 2 councils, and maybe I'll discuss that with the individual chairs as well as the joint chairs to see what we can do to add in timescales, if that's what members would prefer.
And any other resources needed.
Now, that's more difficult because when we got only 2, that's because you'll recall from the Centre for Government Studies that there was reference to resourcing across the whole piece. Realistically, in the time that we've got before LGR, it's unlikely that we're going to get significant resources added in as far as staffing goes. That said, I am talking already with Mr. Corrigan, and I haven't yet, but a lovely surprise for her. I'll also be talking with Candida about some of that stuff. Once this has been decided, members have decided what they want, at that stage, we'll be doing that. But it will be done in a normal head of service way for any other resource. But I'll be very upfront about it. There will be restrictions put on the council by the government early next year about what we can spend money on and all the rest of it, as you know very well. So I'm cautious on that, and that's why the recommendation, or there was discussion around the resourcing, but
even for the resourcing for these particular actions, not necessarily for the whole committee for the next 2 or 3 years. But anyway, yeah, it's a good thing.
Thank you.
Councillor Snowden.
Yeah. I had a few things, but I won't bother. But just going on from Councillor Ray's point, there was a planning peer review a few years ago that I was involved in, and it gave all the recommendations and that. And I asked a question before council a couple of years ago about how far we got in implementing them and that, and it just fizzled out because a lot of the recommendations it carried on as normal, you know. So I was wondering about maybe putting a tracker on the sort of tracker so that this time next year you can see how many we've achieved. Because I think we all agree that they're good recommendations. And the other point I was going to mention, purely because like planning is obviously the shop window of the council, really, for most members of the public. I would say scrutiny is the next one. I would imagine people would like to see that. So I was just going to say, because I've just had someone who wanted to find out about a difficult garden town. I know, can you show me how to do it? Because I didn't even know it. But there's no link to. It used to be very easy. You go on the agenda page and there was a link to watch it. But now you have to go to YouTube to find it. So it just found it. How hard is it to put a link onto and just anyone goes on, they can just press it. It always used to be there. I don't know why it changed.
Yeah, when we set the agendas up, we have separate for Southern Vale, and I think as well we've just had some IT issues, and maybe I should put that on in future and make a point of that. It is on the agenda if you click on the
I've gone through and seen it, but normally it was on the meetings calendar. You could just click on it and then it'd come up. It would say who's going to be there and then it'd be a link for you to watch it.
I think you're making an important point about public visibility of our work, which I think is an important point that we can think about in general.
Chair, would you like me to, based on what Councillor Snowden just said, would you like me to put a recommendation 17 of the scrutiny officer will return in 12 months' time with a full report on all of the recommendations? Would that cover it off? Would that too late?
Yeah, I don't think it actually needs to be. Yeah, I mean, you don't want to spend a lot of time on it, but just like the green and ambers and things. I would imagine, the planning one was a little bit more complicated with some of the stuff, and it just, I think it got too much work, so they just didn't bother doing it in the end. Whereas most of these are fairly quick to implement, but it'd be great to see that they've all been achieved.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think certainly we can come back in 12 months and review, absolutely. But equally, this is us internally as committees, and I think feel free to hold your chairs to account as well, which is me and the
and the other point about devolution, just a point, is the pre-meets of scrutiny. I think I don't know the value of it, to be honest, but we do it at county council, so it's almost like when the councils come together, it'll be another thing that everybody's used to.
Just to follow up on that point, the pre-briefings, we could start that fairly soon, could we? That's actually more work for this committee as well, but that would be quite useful to start that as soon as possible, I think.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Some of these are instantly. I think as soon as we've got them, because is it going to next week's council?
It is, isn't it? Should be.
We haven't had the agenda. Yeah,
I always think the pre-meet is actually more beneficial for the officers, because the amount of times you ask a question and they're like, I'll have to find that information.
Yeah, exactly.
We don't get the answers today, but whereas you should get all the data.
It helps to get some of the queries out of the way, and I think one of the very clear points from the Centre for Governance and Scrutiny was that a lot of our meeting is taken up with kind of information gathering, which is something we don't need to take up each meeting time with. This is the point for us to ask the questions, and it's more beneficial for everybody if in some cases the officers and cabinet have had a chance to go away and think about what we're going to ask them.
It also encourages them to get their reports in early so that we can get them to the pre-brief and perhaps get rid of a few of the typos before they get to the main meeting.
Yeah. Well, yes, exactly. We could do the Control F comment. Are there any elements of this report anybody would like changed? Because our question is, are we happy for this to go to council? Essentially, this is the question we're being asked to.
Can I just ask, when you say pre-briefings, are they live, like Teams meetings, or are they a document that's sent out?
No, it will be live. Sorry, Chair, through you. They'd be the same as we do for say cabinet or licensing occasionally, where just on Teams you would be there, the officers would be there. It would be chaired by the scrutiny officer, and they would to support the chairman and take away the actions. So it is just a briefing.
So my question then would be, are those going to be recorded and are they going to be available somewhere for people who can't make them?
No, they're normally again. This is a public meeting, and it's important that you have the opportunity to sort of let us know what you're going to ask in the public arena, so we can research particular things. But no, this will be the public meeting. This will be the bit where people can watch it, observe it, and chat. You can chat.
We did one the other week with Enterprise Oxygen, the employment people, and questions went off in this direction, and all of a sudden the officer was like, "We're going to have to invite somebody who's a specialist," and it was just, and the whole meeting was revolved around something that they didn't realise we were going to go off in that tangent almost, So.
But I think there's a careful balance not to kind of pre-rehearse a public meeting.
That's the
But
problem, isn't it?
yeah, but I think with a half-hour briefing, you can make clear any questions, any issues. If you want to surprise officers and cabinet members on the night, that's entirely up to you as committee members. But careful. Any other comments? Councillor Cook, you look like you're jumping.
No, I am rarely, for me, content.
Well, in that case, I suggest that we add the recommendation to come back in 12 months with a progress update. I would like to add, on the basis of what Councillor Snowden, perhaps a recommendation that we look at just ensuring the public visibility of our meeting. I don't know if that's, or maybe we just take that away. Let's just take that. We'll take that away. We'll minute that.
Just minute it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we can discuss this on council. Have it approved. Okay, everybody. On that note, I will close this meeting. Thank you, Candida. Thank you, Nick, for your time this evening, but particularly all of your work into this element, which has been not 3 weeks now. Yes, and thank you, everybody, for your excellent contributions this evening. Right, meeting closed.
Susie, can we close the stream, please?
So sorry, guys, my mouse wouldn't find the right button. Yes, we have ended streaming, I can confirm.